My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. What if 98% of human history has vanished, along with the wisdom we need most today? My guest this week on Destination Unlimited, Jack R. Bialik, says it's time for us to rethink how much we really know and how much is waiting to be rediscovered. Jack Bialik's life and career have spanned the globe and technological spectrum. His worldview is shaped by living in many states at an early age and traveling the world, giving him a unique lens on how different cultures operate. His professional career took him from working for the United States Air Force to a long, impactful career at Motorola, and eventually to contributions in White House technology initiatives and humanitarian efforts in Haiti. As a global innovator and thought leader, Jack now dedicates his time to exploring the cyclical nature of human knowledge, how we gain it, how we lose it, and most importantly, how we can do better at preserving it for future generations. His website is jrbialik.com, and he joins me this week to share his amazing book, Lost in Time, Our Forgotten and Vanishing Knowledge. Please join me in welcoming to Destination Unlimited, Jack Bialik. Welcome, Jack.
Well, thank you, Victor. Happy to be here.
Jack, you've lived in 9 different states by the age of 25 and visited many countries. Have these diverse experiences shaped your perspective on global cultures and systems?
Yeah, Victor, I think what happened is as you're growing up, and you're moving from place to place, that really gives your mind an expansive view of things and, an overview of things. You're not locked down to one particular way of thinking. I think it helps. Not that you necessarily need that, but I think it helped me to get a bigger view of the world around us and, kind of open my mind up to new ideas and thoughts and ways of thinking.
You share that only 1.6% of knowledge, of ancient knowledge, is still retained. That sounds almost unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can do the math. They estimate now, it depends on who you ask, but of course, it's estimated that humankind's been around 300,000 years, and we've got about 5,000 years recorded. So, we just have a small percentage. And even of that 5,000 years, we only have portions of it, so it's probably less than 1.6, but yeah, it's very little.
What about some of the architectural discoveries of things that are dating back beyond where we thought we were?
Yeah, well, there's many things that we've found that we've seen. Of course, the biggest one in front of us all right now, the pyramids, the Great Pyramids in Egypt. Uh, there's great mystery surrounding those structures, how they made them, how they put them together. Uh, my background, I have a background in project management, and I just did some simple mathematical kind of computations, and those pyramids are just mind-boggling on how they could put them together. So here, I'll give you an example. So we have 2.3 million three, t- 3-ton stones or larger that are placed there in one of the pyramids. And if you do the math, you would have to lay one stone every 2 minutes, 12 hours a day, 359 days a year. I took a few days out for rain for 20 years. So basically, for 20 years, every 2.3 minutes, you're laying a stone, and it's got to be exactly even and level and perfectly put together. It's mind-boggling. I mean, I don't even know that we could do that. So we have architectural things in front of us that have made us question, how did these people do this?
Absolutely. What inspired you to write Lost in Time, Our Forgotten and Vanishing Knowledge? Was there a particular event or realization that prompted this?
Yeah, the way that really came about was kind of an inspirational moment. Sitting there watching, I think it was National Geographic or the History Channel, one of those, and they start talking about a vending machine in ancient Rome, and that by itself doesn't really strike one, except that if you realize, oh, wait, they had a vending machine in 10 BC that dispensed holy water at temples. You'd put in a Roman coin and holy water would come out. Um, and they even had a more sophisticated version where the holy water would come out in steam on the face of an idol so that it would inspire the worshipers there at the site to give more money, basically was the impetus behind that. But just saying, oh wow, they had a vending machine in 10 BC. Well, wait a minute. What happened in the middle? What happened in between 10 BC and the 1600s when that's really when the modern types of vending machines appeared in the 1600s in England. They had in taverns, they would have you call it an honor box. You'd put a coin in, and the lid would pop open, and you could take pipe tobacco out and put it in your pipe. But what happened in between then? Why did we forget? What happened? And that was just the moment of inspiration that got me to thinking and looking further into these the title of the book, Lost in Time, Our Forgotten and Vanishing Knowledge. How can you write a book about forgotten and vanishing knowledge? If it's forgotten, how can you write about it? Well, here you go. This is the start of finding that kind of information.
Your background is in electrical engineering and, as you mentioned, project management. How did your technical education and professional experiences influence the themes and insights presented in your book?
As we'll look at some of these items that are discovered in the book, I also started to look into the future also. So part of the book is about the past, but part of the book is about the present and what we're doing with knowledge today. Today we're saving our information on, thumb drives or USB drives and SSD drives and so on. We've got a tremendous amount of information packed into a small space. If we look back in time, they had kind of an opposite sort of thing going on where we had a stone tablet, which you could put some information on. Of course, it's not very information dense, but that stone tablet lasted for thousands of years. A you know a DVD or CD might last for 30 or 40 years, surprisingly. The pits inside a DVD or CD, they'll oxidize and it'll eventually become unreadable. But even our SSD and USB drives, how long are they going to last? How long does your computer last?
Mm.
5, 10 years, and you got to get a new one. Um, so our information is getting more dense. The probability of losing that information and great amounts of information are becoming more and more possible and more probable with the way we're going.
I remember going to school back in the 70s in the subways of New York, and there was a sign in the signage, the advertising signage in the subway. And one said, "What will you do when this computer takes over your job?" And somebody had scribbled with a crayon, "Pull the plug." What happens when we pull the plug?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, could that happen? I mean, could something happen that might cause the problem, that we might lose this information? Um, Back in the 1850s, there was it's called a Carrington event. Carrington event, you can look this up, you can Google it. Carrington event was like a super sun spot, an EMP, electromagnetic pulse from the sun that went out and hit the earth. And in the 1850s, now we didn't have a lot of lines, we didn't have power lines and all that sort of thing, but we did have telegraph lines. And that sunspot sent this electromagnetic pulse to the earth, and it energized the lines in the air and the on the poles, and started fires at the end of the in the telegraph stations. So now that's a pretty rare event. We only have records of it happening once. Could it happen again? What would be the effects of it? It could be quite extensive and leave us in quite a spot, I'd say.
I'm not an astrophysicist, but if I'm not mistaken, the past few months we've seen some not a Carrington event, but tremendous solar activity.
Yeah, yeah, they've had some pretty strong ones, and of course those cause a lot of the lights and northern lights. But could something like that happen? Of course, it's possible. It's possible that it could happen.
Your book delves into the cyclical nature of knowledge, loss, and rediscovery throughout history. Can you give us some examples?
Oh yeah. So there are many examples, um, and I'll give you a couple of these here. A couple little secrets that are hidden in the book. So we think about cataract surgery. I don't know if everybody's familiar with cataract surgery. It's where the lens of the eye becomes cloudy. Typically, that happens with age as you get older. And modern cataract surgery started in the 1700s, was done. They would basically tie you down to a chair and do this surgery on your eye. Now, the reason they had to tie you down to a chair is the cornea of your eye is the most densely packed part of your body with nerve endings. I mean, if you get an eyelash in your eye, it drives you nuts until you get it out of there. So it's very sensitive. So they'd have to tie you down in this chair to get cataract, and they would remove that lens of your eye and move it out of the way. Well, turns out that they did cataract surgery in 800 BC. A physician in ancient India called Shashruta, he did something called a couching procedure, where they would remove the cataract in your eye. And that surgery was even done earlier than that. It was done by the ancient Egyptians in 2400 BC and the Babylonians in 2250 BC. They have papyrus scrolls. There's the Ebers papyrus scroll that shows them actually doing this surgery on a on an Egyptian. So uh, it's this cyclical nature. I talked a little bit about, just the vending machine, but here we are talking about medical, procedure that was done, and then they lost how it was done, and then we did it again, and we're doing it today. So many people believe that's a common, there's a recent kind of a procedure, but this procedure has been done multiple times over the past. And these are just a couple of examples. If you like another one, um,
One of my favorites is the Baghdad battery.
yeah, the Baghdad battery. That's a good one where they found 12 of these batteries in Baghdad. And these are, they only can generate about 1 volt, a little over a volt. Um, but they found 12 of these, and they're 2,000 years old.
Hmm.
So, I mean, the big question is, what did they use them for? We have many of these things that we've found that we don't understand and don't know what they use them for. But yeah, that Baghdad battery is very interesting. What are they doing with batteries? They have maybe they had light bulbs, or maybe they were using them for some other purpose.
And you had to take them to a special place to recycle them, right?
Yeah, yeah. I guess we found the, I guess we found the dump.
Absolutely. We talked about the impermanence of digital information. How does that compare to the preservation methods of ancient societies?
Yeah. Well, over time, things have just progressed, and I think it's just the way, our culture has kind of addressed knowledge because they don't really think about it. We don't really think about how we're going to save something for a long time. It just sort of happens. Uh, with the invention of a DVD drive or CD drive, or even further back, the invention of the book. Um, um, yeah, that was a way to save your knowledge, but was that why it came up? I mean, it was also a way to disseminate information and to share that with others in the world at that time. Um, but knowledge travels on language. So without some sort of language, we lose the knowledge and the information. One of my favorite things is the uh, Voynich manuscript. Um, the Voynich manuscript is housed today at the Bernanke Museum at Yale University, and that document has been analyzed by scholars and linguists, and they've been able to determine that the language in that document is real. I mean, it's not something that someone dreamed up, like in Star Wars language or, something like that. So they have this document, and it's dated to the 1400s, was dated by the University of Arizona in 2011, radiocarbon dated. But the interesting thing about this document is no one can decode it. And there's been many people, cryptologists and scholars that have taken a look at it to try to figure out what it's saying. But we've lost the continuity of the language. And so this is a fantastic example, and I recommend you go out and take a look at it. It's very amazing kind of a book. I don't know how many pages are many. It's got a lot of pages in it, but um, it's very, very amazing in what's in there.
I've seen documentaries about the Voynich manuscript, and some of the artwork in there is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very surprising. It's almost otherworldly, say. I don't know. Very unique kind of pictures of plants and people. Some of the plants don't really ring a bell with ones that we're familiar with. So there's really a big question about where that document comes from. They've been able to determine there were five different people that wrote the book. Um, yeah, the language fits the laws of a real language. So um, it's interesting. Yeah.
So, what steps can individuals and organizations take to ensure the preservation of our collective memory for future generations?
Yeah. So I think the number one thing, and part of the point of this book is to just be aware. You know, awareness is a catalyst for change. So if we want to change so that our knowledge will live on for our children and for our next generations to come, we kind of have to wake up and think about what we can do to make smart decisions for the next generations so that they have, a better future, a brighter future than what we even have.
Absolutely. And a lot of the challenges that we're seeing today is the defunding of institutions that maintain that knowledge.
Yeah. Well, this has been a age-old problem. Many in history, uh, these were emperors. Emperor Qin Shi, in the year 200 BC, decided he didn't want anyone to have books, so he burned all the libraries, you know, and except his. He kept his, but he burned everybody else's. And then, if you were found with a book, you had your face tattooed and you were sent out to work on the Wall of China.
Oh,
So, um, and there's many examples of book burnings over the years, for various political reasons and other reasons as well. Um, I don't know what the solution is to that, but I think the solution is we just keep copies, make sure there's copies in multiple places so we don't lose the knowledge.
do you think privatization would be helpful?
Hmm. Yeah, possibly. I think if they do a good job, they really think it through. There is an organization called the Long Now Foundation. That organization measures things in tens of thousands of years.
Mm,
And so if you look on their website, today would be, you know, 02025 would be the year.
hmm
And they are trying to promote the long term and the long thinking. They're building a clock in Texas that will run for 10,000 years.
mm,
So just trying to get people to think, start thinking about things. Don't think about things in, just 100 years or just 50 years. Think about it in 1,000 years or 10,000 years.
absolutely. My guest is Jack Bialik. His book is called Lost in Time, Our Forgotten and Vanishing Knowledge. Jack, please share with our listeners where they can get your book and find out more about you and your work.
Oh yeah. Well, there's a couple places, of course, Amazon. I'm on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. The book is available in hardback, paperback, and ebook. And you can go to my website and find it as well. That's lostintime.world is the website.
And we'll be back with more of Jack after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, Om Times Radio, IOM FM. Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week is Jack Bialik. His book, Lost in Time, Our Forgotten and Vanishing Knowledge. Jack, is it possible that we've already rediscovered ideas that existed thousands of years ago without realizing it?
Yeah, that's a good one. We find things all the time. Um, it's how history changes. You know, we find older and older artifacts. We find, of course, there's the Göbekli Tepe that was found in Turkey. Um, with bring it changes our understanding of the past and what's been done. Um, uh, I think there's been recent findings in I'm going to say in Peru, yeah, in Peru, they found skulls that have been they had cranial surgery on the skulls, and the surgery started in the 400s and went through to the 1400s. And when the skulls were operated on back in the year 400, they found they were about 40% effective. And as they approached the end of when they were doing these surgeries, they found they were 90% effective. So there's always some information popping out. Oh, you may wonder why. How can you say it was 40% or 90%? Well, these skulls, they could see if the person lived, the bone would grow back over the repaired part of their cranium. Back over. They used a gold kind of a plate that they would put in there. And if they lived, the bone would grow back over it. And if the person didn't live, then of course it didn't grow back. So they have a really good understanding of how effective they were. But there's new findings every year. Something comes up.
And it's fascinating that they actually accepted everyone's insurance back in those days. So that was really the great discovery, is that the insurance industry was a little more acceptable way back when. How do you propose that we balance the rapid advancement of technology with the need to maintain accessible and enduring records?
Yeah, this is the challenge for us. How can we do that? I think it has to be a bigger picture. People have to have the big view of the world around us, and what we're doing, instead of just doing it to be cheap or the most inexpensive way to do something, or uh, just for that commercial need. How about we do something that's for the good of all of humankind? You know, let's have that as one of our design criteria that we use in our production values. Wouldn't that be novel?
Absolutely. Do you see artificial intelligence as a boon or a threat to knowledge?
Uh, yeah, that's a great one because think about it. I can remember when the calculator came out, how everybody was up in arms. Well, the world's going to end. We're not going to be able to calculate anymore. And nobody will remember how to add, subtract, and multiply and divide. But that isn't what happened. We just were able to do more and do more calculations. Even further back, when the book came out, or printed material came out, a lot of the scholars of that time, the philosophers of the time, thought that was the end of mankind because we wouldn't have to remember anything. It would be in a book or written down. but that isn't at all what happened. So I think AI is just another step. The internet was a step. AI is another step. I think it's going to help us. And my hope is that it can actually help us figure out how to keep our knowledge. Not that it will necessarily keep it, but it could help us figure out how to keep it for ages, for years beyond, when the information was created.
Your career spans from working with the United States Air Force to a 25-year tenure at Motorola's cell phone business. How have these roles influenced your understanding of knowledge, management, and preservation?
Yeah, well, I think it's given me the view of technology. Really, my whole career has been around technology. Understanding that I've done project roles, multi-million dollar projects for banks and communication systems for organizations. And it really has given me pause to sit and think as I went through writing this book. This book took 10 years to put together. Um, I think that gave me the background to really think about the future, being embedded in technology, where I think the tendency is to think, hey, technology is great. More technology is better. Well, it is, but within context, as long as it can help us live longer, think better, keep our knowledge longer, I think it is good. So we just need to keep that in mind.
Part of my career, I spent 46 years in the welding and industrial technology industry. And in the last few years before my retirement, I was working with robotic systems for welding.
Oh,
And one of the things about robots is they will do what you program them to do. They won't think for you, but they'll do the thinking that you embedded into them, imbued into them. And so consequently, the idea was that the gentleman who was the operator could load the parts, take the program, and then initiate the program, and that the robotic arm would go to the places assigned, do the welds the same way every time. There were sensors to make sure that if anything was out of shape or out of alignment, that it would correct the path and do the work. And people would say, well, those robots are taking over people's jobs. In actuality, those robots were actually enhancing the jobs because you still needed operators to load them, to make sure they were operating properly, to unload them and reload them. What do you think about robotics?
yeah. That's a great point, Victor, because in many of these cases, what's happened is people's jobs may have been replaced in some form, but then they go on to do something else, a bigger kind of a job. Now, your question was about robotics, and in terms uh, of assembly lines, there have been. I'm going to go back to Emperor Quinn in 2010 BC. The I'll talk a little bit about the Terracotta Army. Emperor Quinn, he built a mausoleum in 210 BC. He was the first emperor of China. And uh, he built this mausoleum with 7,000 statues. Actually, it's over 700,000 statues of warriors, of chariots, horses, musicians, and imperial court figures to keep guard at his mausoleum. And it covers an area of 2.1 million square meters or 538 acres. 538 acres of these figures. Well, the interesting thing about these figures is they were built in a assembly line sort of fashion. Not exactly assembly line like we would think of it today, and they didn't have robotics, but they did a huge kind of an assembly line to put that together. So in past years, maybe they didn't have the machinery to do it, but they certainly had the idea, the base idea of putting those things together.
Why do you think we humans are so bad at holding on to wisdom, even in the digital age?
Yeah, well, I'll go back to, what we're aware of. If we're thinking about just we tend to think just in a very linear way, but not very far into the future. We just have to have a wider purview of what it is we're doing and think about things for the long term.
You were involved in the White House's Broadband Technology Opportunities Program. How did this experience shape your views on digital infrastructure and its role in knowledge dissemination?
Well, digital infrastructure, of course, is important. Uh, Being able to share information with others is critical in our expansion. And I think what is going to happen in the future is the more information that we have that's spread out wider, the more likely it is that it'll last through whatever uh, whatever we go through as a human race. Um, I know there's been many places where we've put um, time capsules in the ground, and in the hopes that these time capsules will be there in the future. Um, for example, Oglethorpe University has a crypt of civilization that they put in place in 1935. Um, their hope is that that's going to be opened in the year 8113.
Mm.
But we have plenty of examples of time capsules that have been lost. There's one rather famous one. George Washington buried one at the White House in 1793, and it's never been found. They've looked for it through different refurbishments and changes at the White House. That time capsule is still lost to today.
Mm.
So, you know, that that we got to think about, not just, I don't think a time capsule is the answer. I think we have to spread the information. And I think our infrastructure can help with that.
They couldn't even find it under the East Wing?
I don't know. I hope they took their time and looked for it.
You've done a lot of humanitarian work, and that work includes installing water purification systems in Haiti. How did these efforts inform your perspective on the importance of preserving practical knowledge for societal well being?
Yeah. So I had the opportunity to go to the seventh poorest country in the world. And, you see how they live their life simply, which is, that's good. Nothing wrong with that. But you see how their life could be so much better if they utilize the same knowledge and wisdom that we have. That's the other part of this I haven't really talked about yet, which is the proper application of knowledge, which is wisdom, is an important aspect to the knowledge we have preserved. So we have to be mindful of how we use this knowledge so that it's used in a way that is helpful and not, negative purposes.
Absolutely. What do you see as the biggest challenges we face in preserving knowledge in the 21st century?
I think, in my opinion, I think I just touched on it, being wise, thinking about what we're doing, using the knowledge we have for wise applications. I just was just listening to a family member tell a story about uh, an an elderly person getting scammed out of $25,000. Here's an example of someone that is using knowledge in a way that is not wise. It isn't a wise way of using the knowledge. So I think the challenge, and as we get more and more knowledge, we have to also have more and more wisdom about how to use that. So as AI comes onto the forefront here, are we going to be wise about it? We have to be wise about it. Otherwise, we could have negative consequences.
And also adapt an understanding of how not everyone will be technologically savvy and being good neighbors and good humans and sharing that with them
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
in everything that we do.
Yeah, yeah.
My
So,
guest is Jack Bialik. His book is called Lost in Time, Our Forgotten and Vanishing Knowledge. We'll be back with more after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week is Jack Bialik. His book, Lost in Time, Our Forgotten and Vanishing Knowledge. Jack, can you discuss any innovative solutions or technologies that are currently being developed to address the issue of knowledge preservation?
Yeah, well, we already touched on it briefly there. The Long Now Foundation, they are taking many steps. They're working in different areas to try to bring to the forefront new thoughts, new ways of thinking about things. Um, there's also a branch of knowledge that has been seen quite a bit. Oh,
That's okay.
there's a new branch of knowledge management that's kind of been coming to the forefront. It's called knowledge management. Uh, and there are several books out on this topic of how to manage our knowledge. So I think if we see kind of an uptick in how we manage our knowledge, I think that will be a great help because we have so much data, so much information. In my book, I talk about that. Talk about the digital dark age. I talk about how our our knowledge information has just been expanding on an exponential rate. Uh, how much information? I took a look at the number of patents being applied for. If you take a look at the graph of the number of patents, it's tremendous. It's an explosive growth. So we really have to figure out a way to save that knowledge in a way and be able to ferret through it to find where's the nuggets of information we need to save. Do we need to save everything? You know, so
I remember a song lyric from the late 1960s that said, "Knowledge is a deadly friend when no one sets the rules. The fate of all mankind, I fear, is in the hands of fools." Is it?
Wow. Yeah, that's great. Uh, didn't know about
That
that.
was a song by King Crimson.
Oh yeah. Wow. I used to listen to them. Uh, um, I probably heard that song. Maybe that was a subliminal suggestion to me.
I think the song was called Epitaph.
Ah, okay, very good. Good memory on that one. Um, so uh yeah, I think we often will take a negative view towards some of these things, we're doomed or this is the end of it all. But in reality that rarely happens. That isn't the case. We figure out a way. We get around it, things get better. We're smart. So uh, we'll see our way through it. But there's often an easy way or a hard way. It's a lot better if we take the easy way and make the decisions for ourselves that are the wise ones.
How do cultural differences impact the way societies value and preserve knowledge?
Yeah. So if we take a look at the different cultures around the world, um, if we have a culture that, say, take a look at the Indian culture. They used a technique of passing down knowledge through stories, through the spoken word. And is that better or worse? I don't. I don't think there's a thing we can say about that is negative. Spoken word is good. That can work as long as the people don't disappear for whatever reason. Um, as long as they're around, I think there's other cultures in the South Africa, that sort of area where there's a lot of storytelling that's done. The written word is fine too, but again, that can get lost. So there's different techniques I've seen where they used beads to store information and knowledge. I think that was in South America. They found beads where they used them for counting and for uh, embedding information into beads.
Mm.
So different cultures do have different ways of saving the information.
How may individuals, our listeners out there, contribute to the preservation of knowledge in their daily lives?
Well, we all do. Every single one of us, contributes in some way to the knowledge and the knowledge base that we have. No matter what you do, you're part of the big picture. You interact with other people, or you yourself are a person who stores and saves information, or you store and save information for other people. So we all have a role to play, and we all are important in doing the right things.
So, 1,000 years from now, what do you think that the civilizations will say about our era? Are we preserving wisdom or setting ourselves out for another dark age?
Yeah. Well, the ultimate litmus test on that will be where are we in 1,000 years? But you can imagine someone in even 500 years or 200 years finding a buried cell phone. And if they could take that cell phone and turn it on, would they be able to use it or to find any of the information that's on it? Or be able to make any sense out of it. They might just think it's a piece of metal or something like that. So um, it's the crux of the problem is we need to think about how we save the information. So, for example, today we have libraries that have huge problems. I just read an article where JPEG standard is going to change. There's going to be a new one come out. And what do libraries do with all the JPEGs they have of pictures? And they have they have huge terabytes of stores of information. You know, it's a big problem for libraries. And do they convert it to this new format? And what do they do? So there's a lot of people, a lot of smart people working on this, but it's a big problem, and we don't really we always think, you know, latest thing is the best thing. Well, maybe it is, but make sure we give ourselves a path to keep the information that's old. I've got a interesting story about that. I interviewed the curator for the Internet Museum in San Francisco. And at that museum, they have all of the original IBMs and IBM PCs and original Apple computers. And he was telling me a story that those computers all use floppy disks to store and save the information. And those floppy disks only last a short time and then they become brittle and fall apart. So they can't read them anymore. And I don't even believe you can buy them anymore. I don't know. But what they do at the museum is they take the programs that are on those computers and they print them on paper. I mean, is that going backwards? What, kind of interesting. So, that's an example of how we got to think about things, to make sure that they're extendable into the future.
The philosopher George Santayana said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. And I think there's proof of it. I think we have plenty of proof. We have examples all over the place.
Yeah.
Um, so I didn't talk about this example, but I'm going to talk about it now because it's close to all of us, something that we're all very familiar with. And that's the toilet. The toilet is commonly believed that it was invented by Thomas Crapper in 1861. That is his real name, by the way. But in fact, he only invented an improved version of the toilet. The modern toilet was invented in the 1500s in England for use in castles. But the Babylonians also had sewers in 2900 BC, as did the Romans in 500 BC. However, in the Middle Ages in Europe, they had no sewers or toilets. The sewage ran off the top of buildings and into the middle of streets and may have contributed to the Black Plague.
Hmm.
So if we don't think about things and don't remember things and don't utilize our knowledge, we will go through difficult times. Those people in the 1300s, in the Middle Ages, did not have a good time. That was not something we want to go through again. So it's important, this is a sanitary purpose, but that we don't forget our knowledge and don't lose it.
Absolutely. What message do you hope readers take away from Lost in Time?
Well, the number one thing that to keep in mind, and this is in the last chapter of the book, is be humble. You know, be open to new ideas, be open to old ideas. Be mindful about what you're using, what knowledge you're using, and where it's from, and what you're using it for. I think a lot of times, I know in business, I've been in places where, they may have information from a previous project or previous thing that was done, and they don't want to use it because they say, well, this time it's different. Well, maybe not. Maybe this time you could use some of that information. Maybe there's parts of it you can use that will help you to do it quicker, faster, smarter, cheaper, easier. So be humble and think about being wise. Those are the two key things.
The wisdom of my guest, Jack Bialik, his book, Lost in Time, Our Forgotten and Vanishing Knowledge. Jack, one more time, please share with listeners where they can get your book and find out more about you and your work.
Yeah. Thank you, Victor. Yeah, they can go to Amazon or Barnes& Noble, look it up, Lost in Time, Our Forgotten and Vanishing Knowledge. You can also go to my website. It's lostintime.world and find information there and links to the hardback, softback, and ebook.
Jack, thank you so much for joining us and sharing this important and amazing information.
Well, thank you, Victor. Thank you for having me on this broadcast.
And thank you for joining us on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor the Voice Furman. Have a wonderful week.